Well, welcome back once again to the Empowered Business Show. So grateful to be here again with you here on Friday. Here with my good friend Hayden. Hayden, how are you today?
Hey David, I'm doing absolutely great. So it's been a great week. I'm really excited to be back with our wonderful viewers today. So looking forward to a
Yeah,
great episode.
I am too. And so we are going to talk today about the kind of a continuation of what we talked about last week, talking about the future of work. But this time we're going to take a little bit different angle and really just we're calling this episode Tooling Up for Change because at the end of the day, as leaders, as business owners, it's all about change. And so we're having to make some changes. And when we do that, there are certain things that bubble up within inside of us that we feel and we feel challenged with. And so we're going to talk about those challenges because we know that we're challenged with them. And so we recognize that you are too. And so, Hayden, what are some of those things for you that have come up that as we lead into this new future of work, what are those things that you're feeling, and then maybe even some of your clients are feeling in this change?
Yeah, as you say, it's a really challenging time for many leaders as they go through this transition because it's started to expose a few things in the way that they lead their businesses or their teams that has
Yeah.
started to become really relevant. And maybe they'd not even kind of noticed before. So one of the
Hmm.
things that has really come to the fore is this whole conversation around trust.
Hmm.
When we've been forced into this way of working through the pandemic and we've had everybody dispersed, there's been this whole kind of we've had to do it, but do I really trust that people are going to work effectively when I'm not there to drive or to direct what's needed? And if I can't see what's happening, how do I know that the quality's there and they're not cutting corners? So this whole concept of do I really do I really trust my teams?
Hmm.
And I think we're now in this place where we're starting to open up back into our workplaces, as we talked about last week. It's really been tested because we've had to do it for the last 18 months, whether we liked it or not, in most cases. Now we've got a choice. What do we want it to
Hmm.
look like? Do we still want to trust our teams to be able to work and operate effectively with the freedom to work how and when they please? Or
Hmm.
do we want to get people back under our kind of direct gaze so we can see what's going on and feel like we know what's happening and really kind of work into there? And so it's definitely this tension that I'm seeing in a lot of my
Yeah.
clients that although they've kind of accepted that people have been able to work really well
Yeah.
in that environment that they've had to, when it's
Yeah.
coming back into now their choice and their
Hmm.
preference is still to feel like they want to be able to see what's going on, to give them the peace of mind, rather than really think about what's going on for their team. So I'm
Yeah.
definitely seeing this tension with a lot of leaders as we shift back, where this kind of whole concept of trust has started to bubble to the surface a little bit more. And I think it's a really interesting time for leaders as to the choices they make right now to
Yeah.
enable them to lead into the future. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I think is really prevalent, and I've heard many people mention it, is this kind of fear of being called a micromanager.
Yes. Yes.
This fear of because they want to know what's going on, they want to be in control of things, they want to be on top of things and make sure that everything's happening, be productive and deliver numbers and all of that stuff.
Hmm.
They want to know what's happening, but they don't want to be called a micromanager. They don't want to be
Yeah.
kind of restricting, controlling people. And that, again, this fear of being a micromanager, but still wanting to know exactly what's going on all of the time is a tension that I've seen in so many business owners, and
Yeah.
it's become more and more relevant over the last 18 months. So, what
Yeah.
about you? What are you noticing in that space?
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about the label of being a micromanager because that's not a label that we want. I mean, most people view that as a negative, and so I think that too it's a letting go of what we knew in the past, and so anytime we have change, we're going to be in this area of discomfort, and so I see this exact same thing happening here in the business owners that I'm working with, is that they want to hold on to the past because it's comfortable, and they want to hold on to the way they've done things in the past because it's just part of their pattern and part of their habits. Um, and so breaking those habits is going to require us to really step into that comfort zone. Paul talks about getting outside of your comfort zone all the time. And when we do that, it's not going to be comfortable. Obviously, it's the definition of stepping outside of your comfort zone.
Really?
And it's going to be a really disarming, disconcerting, I guess is the right word, kind of like the fog that we talked about in one of our episodes a number of months ago. It's really having to navigate through that is one of the biggest challenges. And so letting go is such a big thing right now. And I think that the leaders that I am working with, that's a big challenge, and it's a big mindset shift for them. And I know that they're feeling it deeply because they've been programmed to command and control, and maybe not so much the command, but they want to have some semblance of control. And I think what we're talking about here is really about the opposite of that, and that's empowerment and empowering our people, helping our people to live into their full potential. And so I know that is a big mindset shift. It's a huge mindset shift for a number of leaders. And so that's a big pain point that I know a lot of my clients are grappling with. Like, how do I do this? And just that feeling of, but I need to know, I need to see.
Yeah.
That's the hard part.
Yeah, it's one of those things. So you're right. Nobody likes the label of the micromanager.
Yeah.
But when I start to talking to some of the leaders that I work with, some of the people I coach, and you start to ask them questions in terms of, well, how comfortable do you feel when you don't know what decisions are being made? Mm-hmm. How comfortable are you that people might choose an alternative way to do things than the way that you would do it? Yeah. How comfortable are you not knowing or not being clear on whether something's going to land on the deadline or not? Mm-hmm. How much do you trust the fact that your teams are really going to deliver their best work, irrelevant of whether you're there and able to view it or not? And you see the discomfort, you see the physical, literally the physical kind of squirming that happens, because they don't want to be called a micromanager, but a lot of their behaviors are that need to be really tightly controlling. And that's the tension that you see within these leads. So again, throw it out to our audience listen today. How do you feel about those circumstances when you've got people who work for you who are operating under your banner, either directly as an employee or maybe as a freelance associate of yours? What's your level of comfort and what's your level of trust that they are going to deliver to the standards that you really want them to? And how comfortable are you in that time between the task being given and it being delivered with knowing that it's going to land to the expectations that you have? Because that gives us an indication as to the level of trust we have within our teams. And if that's something that you find uncomfortable, then we're going to have something a little bit later on in the show that we're going to share with you that will definitely help in that area. But it's a great question to ask yourself, is how comfortable do I feel when I am when I don't have line of sight, when I don't have that visibility of what's happening? How confident am I that things will happen the way I want them to happen or the way that I expect them to happen and get delivered to those standards? It's a good question just to ask yourself.
Yeah, and I guess thinking into the questions, I'm thinking about a particular business owner, CEO that I'm working with one-on-one in coaching, and one of the questions that I asked was, what's the worst thing that could happen if you don't see things going on, and what can't you recover from? And really, the answer was nothing. I mean, the reality is that this person, the CEO, hired brilliant people. I mean, they've got great people on board. And so it's really a matter of letting go. And again, it's empowering them. And in some ways, it's coming up with those words that, hey, I trust you. Make the best decision that you can make, and let's move on. If it turns out that it wasn't a great decision, then we will practice blameless problem solving, and we will go back and take a look at what could we have done differently. What did you need that would have led you to a different decision? So just building trust with our people and letting them know that we trust them, just by verbally saying that, it's one thing. But I think secondly too is opening up our vulnerability and to be able to recognize and tell our people, hey, look, this is an area that I struggle. I struggle with opening my decision making and allowing you to make decisions. I recognize that. So that vulnerability is really going to lead to the beginning of what Patrick Lencioni calls vulnerability-based trust.
Absolutely.
And so we have to be able to open up our own vulnerabilities. And it's weird because as leaders, we think we have to be super strong all the time, but really it's in our weakness or our vulnerabilities when we're going to garner that trust. And so as a leader, make sure that you're opening up and just admitting it, and admitting, hey, this is trouble. This is trouble for me. This is difficult.
Yeah. And the thing that comes to my mind in that is, again, asking yourself the question as a leader is, when I am feeling like I need to jump in or I need to be on top of something, for whose benefit is that?
Yes.
Because if the answer is it's for your benefit, to make you feel better, then that's showing up this lack of trust and the dangers of you becoming a micromanager for the very sake of just needing to feel like you're in control. If the answer is, well, no, they need my help, they need my expertise and guidance because they lack that, then it's absolutely right to get in there and get involved and get hands-on and help coach them and develop them and train them, because it's not always the wrong thing to be on top of something.
Right.
It's the wrong thing when you're on top of something that somebody has all the capability to be able to do because you've recruited really well and you've trained them really well and they're fully adept and skilled up. They're tooled up themselves to be able to cope with what you're asking them to do.
Yeah.
And then you're still controlling their actions. That's when it becomes a negative thing.
Right.
But when you're in a place where the person needs your help, needs your guidance, needs that expertise that you have because they don't have that themselves, then it's great to step in. It's great to be that really supportive leader who is going to help your team take that next step forward in their kind of role or remit that they have. So asking yourself the question, who am I doing this for? When you have that urge to check in, to find out what's going on, to ask for an update, that's the time when you need to just check in. What's my motive behind it? Is my motive to help or is my motive to feel like I'm in control and in the driving seat? And that's just something that I, again, ask a lot of my clients to think into when they're raising concerns about their visibility of processes or the work that's been done.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things that comes to my mind as you were sharing is when I think about the cultural behaviors that I teach, I often will have this behavior or this fundamental called getting clear on expectations. And when we set and get clear on expectations, that helps us to level set what we do expect. And so setting the expectation that if I'm talking to you and you're my subordinate or, you're my employee, you're my team, I want to say, hey, Hayden, I expect you to make this decision. If you have questions and you need me, come and ask. Let's talk about it. But I fully expect you to make the decision. So that expectation is really powerful in developing trust. And so I think that too often we forget that sometimes what's going on in our head doesn't necessarily always come out of our mouth.
Right.
And so we need to make sure that we get those expectations out on the table and be sure to verbalize those. So I think that's really key.
Yeah, and it reminds me of a technique that I learned a couple of years ago. I can't remember where it comes from, so apologies. I don't have the reference for it, but it was this technique of saying that you have 51% of the vote.
Yeah.
So if I'm your line manager and there are decisions that you are within your remit to make, then making it clear to they have 51% of the vote. So they've got the casting vote on the decision, but it's not 100% of the vote because I'm not going to give it all on you and I take complete abdication of my responsibility.
Right.
I'm still invested in the outcome.
Yeah.
But you've got the casting vote. You've got the predominant share. So ultimately, it's your decision. But I'm here to help and support as you go. And that was always something that I really liked, the concept of having 51% of the vote, knowing the ball's in your court, but you're not alone. You're not alone dealing with it. I'm here if you need me, but it's over to you. If you're confident, you know what to do, then you've got the vote. You can move on and take the actions that you need to take. And I think that's a a great ethos for us to lead through within our businesses, to say,
Mhm.
when do you need to have 51% of the vote as the leader of the business?
Yeah.
And when is it okay to pass that casting vote to the members of your team, and
Yeah.
knowing that they have that casting vote? And that's it's a
Yeah. Yeah.
nice, simple metaphor that I think is really quite powerful to think about that decision-making process that might happen within businesses.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that comes to my mind, and just a question, and I'd love to get your insights on this, Hayden, is that, so oftentimes when we think about trusting our teams and we want to give up that control, we want to give them the 51% of the vote, we feel out of control. We feel like there's a
Mhm.
lack of control. And so, how do leaders really embrace the
Yeah.
lack of control, especially with balancing the not wanting to be a micromanager? How do we do that? How do we deal with that?
Yeah, it's a really interesting, because again, you'll have managers I speak to, and leaders I speak to in business all the time is like that. Well, I'm not gonna know what's gonna happen. I need to report to my superiors about what's happening. So how am I going to be able to report back? Or,
Mhm.
I've got clients waiting. I need to know what's happening, because I'll need to report to them and give them information.
Yeah.
And there's this, again, we are just programmed from an early age. You talked about programming earlier. We're
Mhm.
programmed from an early age to want to box things out, to put pieces
Yeah.
into structure and routine and regiments, and create these kind of boundaries around things.
Mhm.
And the reality is that life is not like that. And one of the
That's
things I
right.
say to leaders is, leaders by their very nature create more uncertainty and less control,
Mhm.
because leadership is about creating movement. It's about shifting
Yeah.
paradigm, and by the very nature of shifting, you're creating change. So
Mhm.
that creates more chaos.
Yep.
So as a leader, if you really want to become a leader rather than a manager, you've got to embrace the uncertainty of the shifting sands,
Yeah.
and accept that you can never fully control it.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
can never fully control it. You've
Yeah.
got to be willing to be agile enough, and respond to the moments, but without feeling like you need to control and restrict or restrain.
Yeah.
Because when we move to that place, and this is, I think, the tension between wanting to be a manager and wanting to be a leader,
Mhm.
is managers want to create order, want
Yeah.
to create structure, want to create
Yeah.
organization, want to create predictable outcomes. That's what management is all about. That's the whole
Yeah.
principle of management. And leadership, actually, by its very nature, fights against all of that,
Right.
because
Right.
it creates change, it creates shifting sands, it creates alternative ways of approaching the circumstances. And that willingness to kind of embrace that shifting momentum, shifting changes, and
Mhm.
recognize that it's okay to not know.
Yes. Yes.
That's the one thing I think we can all as leaders do, is to recognize it's okay not to know.
Mhm.
You don't
Mhm.
have to have the answer to every question that is asked.
Yeah. Yeah, for
You
sure.
might need to know where to find an answer to those questions, but you don't need to have it.
Yes.
And that's the thing that I think a lot of leaders need to recognize is, I don't need to know. The comfort with not knowing
Yeah.
is probably the biggest challenge for most leaders.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I just thought maybe this would be a good time to check in with the listeners, and just, I know that we can't talk live on camera, but you can drop a comment below. I'd love to hear, what are some of the challenges that you're facing right now? What are some of those feelings around this lack of control and trusting your team? Where has this been evidence for you?
Mm.
And I'd just love to kind of see some of your comments in the comments below. And one of the things that we're talking about here is really navigating change. And so Hayden and I have put together a free workshop. It's just going to be a 30, maybe 45-minute workshop to help you as a business owner and you as a business leader to navigate this change, to navigate this tension between wanting to trust our teams and wanting to control. And so we'd love to invite you to this free workshop. And so I know our ambassadors are going to drop the link in the comments below. And a huge shout out to our ambassadors. Thank you so much for navigating the comments for us. We so appreciate it. And we appreciate your time investment. And so we just want to be able to invite you to this workshop. And we've titled it 5 Strategies to Lead the Future of Work. And it's what we've been talking about the past couple of weeks. We're in uncharted territory for most, if not all of us in business leadership. And so being able to navigate this change, to be able to set the course when we may not necessarily be able to see through those steps that we need to be taking, we're going to offer you some really great tools and resources that we've seen help our clients and also just seen to be so useful. And so we want to offer that to you in this free workshop. Hayden, you want to add anything else that maybe I've forgotten?
No, great. I mean, it's going to take place on the 8th of September, so that's going to be the date. We'll again, all the details will be in the link that you'll have. But I guess it's for you might be sitting there listening, thinking, well, that sounds great, but is it for me? Is it the right thing for me? And this is really aimed at anybody who, if you're leading a business 100%, you're going through some of these reflections at the moment. And even if you're not doing it, some of your managerial team will absolutely. So if you're going to lead them effectively, you need to kind of get and understand their challenges of what they might be facing right now, even if you think you're kind of ready to embrace them. And it might be that you are a manager within a business. You don't run your own business, so you may not have influence about the future of work, but you can influence how you want your team to work in the future. And again, this is absolutely for you. It's designed to give you practical techniques and solutions to some of the challenges that we've been talking about today and over our episode last week that you can then start to apply. And you might be thinking, well, okay, I'm a solopreneur, I'm a really small business, we've got a really small team. Again, even people like yourselves, business owners like you, will get some benefit because it will give you some tools and techniques to think about how you work with some of your providers, some of your freelance operators who work with you, associates you might have in your team, some of those kind of stakeholders you've got. Because again, concepts of trust and control sit within an employer relationship as well as our supplier relationships that we might have, or our associate relationships. So there's really something, whatever type of leader and manager you are, there's something in this webinar that you'll be able to get from it. It's completely free. David and I will be live on the session talking into some of these concepts and ideas and giving you some practical guidance, things that you can take away and implement to help you to build greater trust in your team, to have that feeling of letting go that we've talked about already today. So I can't recommend it enough. It'd be great to have you on with us, and we'll also have some time to answer any questions as well. So you can come along, pitch a question at us, and we will do our best to give you an answer and have that opportunity to talk to us about some of the challenges you're facing in your own businesses.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. You will be able to interact with us, so we'll be live and on camera. So will you. So we'll be able to interact, and so I think that's a great opportunity for you to be able to ask us questions, and then for us really just to be able to interact with you live outside of this venue. And so I think it's going to be a really a great workshop. And as Hayden said, going to be very practical. I mean, all of us, it doesn't matter if you own your business, you're a leader within a business, you're an emerging leader. I work a lot with emerging leaders. And so those leaders need to know how to navigate change as well. So if that's you, make sure you sign up for this free workshop. It's free, but it's going to be very practical. You know, Hayden and I have worked together, not just together on a client or two, but we've also worked individually with our clients. And so we know these tips and these tools and these practical applications work. And so we want to be able to give them to you and really help you navigate this change, because let's face it, we can all use each other's help, and we can use whatever help that is available to us.
Yeah, David, I say this a lot to my clients, this is probably the hardest time in anybody's career as a leader.
Yeah, it is.
Because we don't know what the path forward looks like. There is no map to follow, because nobody's ever been in this position before,
That's
not
right.
to the scale. So there are
Hmm.
small companies who may, like my company has always been a dispersed workforce.
Yeah.
So there's not been any real job, but even my work has changed completely over the last
Yeah.
18 months because of the nature. So
Right.
no matter what your setup is, everybody is facing unprecedented times, uncharted territories, you called it earlier.
Yeah.
And therefore, we all need to really lean in and invest in our own leadership capability to
Right.
come through this as strong as we can.
Hmm.
Because it is a tough time, it is a challenging time, but there is so much opportunity that we talked about last week.
Yeah.
And for the best leaders, they're going to embrace that opportunity and come through it,
Hmm.
really providing great strength to their businesses and their organizations on the back of it. And that's what we want to help people with, to come through this in a way that gives them the strategies to really lead into the future. And
Yeah.
we're just so excited to bring this to you, and look forward to having
Yeah.
as many of you join us as we can when we go live on the 8th of September.
Yes, absolutely. So we hope that you'll join us. Hit the link in the comments below. Thank you to our ambassadors who are providing those links, and yeah, it would be great to be able to actually see you live as well, and interact with you, and come with your questions. Maybe it's not necessarily around trust or this tension between being a micromanager and letting go and control. Maybe it's something else that you're struggling with. That's okay too. But we're going to give you some practical tips, and we really hope to see you there. Hayden, any other closing thoughts on this episode that you think that we need to cover to make it complete?
Yeah, no, it's been a great episode, great topic, and again, feels really relevant to certainly the
Mhm.
conversations I'm having, and I know you're having the same as well, and what I'm hearing from a lot of managers right now. The final thoughts for me is just really check in with yourself as to,
Yeah.
like, that question I said earlier is who is this for? It's a
Mhm.
great place to start. Is who is
Yeah.
this for, to really check in, and if you do find that trust or this tension between trust and control is an issue for you, then definitely come and join us, and we'd love to spend some time with you and explore it in more depth.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, as always, thank you for joining us. Thanks for joining us live here on Friday, or during the replays, wherever you're watching us. We appreciate your attention because we know that that's valuable. And we really hope that this has given you some value. And we know that this workshop that we're planning on September 8th is going to be really fantastic. We've got some very practical tips. So please join us then. And until then, be well, and we'll see you soon. Bye for
Have a
now.
great week, everyone.